I represented Blake Snell
Nice.
when he kind of came to Tampa Bay. He was renting a luxury, I think, apartment or house for a while there. And Ryan Denlinger, who was a manager for the Rays that I had worked with, he and his wife on a purchase prior, called me up one day and said, I have a referral for you. It's Blake Snell. And I'm honestly not a huge baseball person, but the name rung a bell. And I was like, quick Google, and realized, okay, this guy's got a 50-something million contract at the time. And wanted to go look at properties. Yeah.
Getting a contract that big, I can only imagine what his criteria was to purchase something, or was it more in the terms like more modest, would you say, considering his
I think
contract?
it was modest because his main home was in Seattle, but he wanted obviously something comfortable here. He wanted to be on the water. And, I always try to get to know my clients a little bit, find something to bond with them on. And he was maybe a little bit tricky to get to know because he's so focused on baseball. And I was asking him, like, what are you into? And he was like, I don't drink, I don't party, I do baseball, I play video games, and I fish. And I was like, okay. But yeah, we did find him a really nice property on open water. So I represented him on the purchase. And then when he got traded a couple of years later, I represented him on the sale.
You were the short sale queen. So in real estate, it's all about, or in growing in a career, I think it's all about opportunity. And that's an opportunity you took, even though it was a terrible situation considering 2008, 9, 7. And then the other thing was that you're relationship based, because that's how you got a heavy hitter like Blake Snell. So I'm sure you're always looking for these opportunities to take, advantage of and make it to your benefit so you can help clients. But tell me a little bit more about getting a high profile client like a Blake Snell. 3 balls, 2 strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to the Full Count. Hey everyone, welcome to Full Count Podcast. We have a special guest today who's a top real estate broker in Tampa, Florida. And she also has a great list of clientele, MLB players, high profile clients. So Liane, welcome to Full Count.
Thank you.
If you can kind of go over your background a little bit, would be great. And then we'll kind of go into the Rays star that you took care of.
Yeah, sure. I've been in the business about 17 years. Got started in 2007, which was when, the short sales and foreclosures were pretty rampant, and a lot of agents were getting out of the business. And I kind of decided, like, hey, I have to learn how to do these or I'm not going to stay in the business. So I became a short sale queen for a while. I've worked kind of both sides of Tampa Bay. A lot of people don't know that the Tampa side of Tampa Bay doesn't have beaches, and I live now over in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, Clearwater area has more of the nice beaches and stuff like that, but worked all over the Bay Area. And as you mentioned, I represented Blake Snell when he kind of came to Tampa Bay. He was renting a luxury, I think, apartment or house for a while there. And Ryan Denlinger, who was a manager for the Rays that I had worked with, he and his wife on a purchase prior, called me up one day and said, I have a referral for you. It's Blake Snell. And I'm honestly not a huge baseball person, but the name rung a bell. And I was like, quick Google, and realized, okay, this guy's got a 50-something million contract at the time. And, wanted to go look at properties.
That's huge, because he's a young guy even now, and at that time he was even younger. So getting a contract that big, I can only imagine what his criteria was to purchase something, or was it more in the terms like more modest, would you say, considering his
I think
contract?
it was modest because his main home was in Seattle, but he wanted obviously something comfortable here. He wanted to be on the water, and I always try to get to know my clients a little bit, find something to bond with them on. And he was maybe a little bit tricky to get to know because he's so focused on baseball. And I was asking him, like, what are you into? And he was like, I don't drink, I don't party, I do baseball, I play video games, and I fish. And I was like, okay. So, but yeah, we did find him a really nice property on open water. So I represented him on the purchase. And then when he got traded a couple of years later, I represented him on the sale.
Now you said open water. Where, like, what neighborhood is that?
He ended up buying in Shore Acres, which is actually where I ended up moving to.
Mm,
It was a great place that kind of looked out to open water and a little bit of a Weeden Island preserve. So really good, jet skiing through there, fishing.
there
There's
you
a
go.
sandbar that he could see from his house. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, so two things I already heard from some things you told me.
Hmm.
One, you were the short sale queen. So in real estate, it's all about, or in growing in a career, I think it's all about opportunity.
Hmm.
And that's an opportunity you took, even
Yeah.
though it was a terrible situation considering 2008, 9, 7.
Hmm.
And then the other thing was that you're relationship based because that's how you got a heavy hitter like Blake Snell.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're always looking for these opportunities to take advantage of and make it to your benefit so you can help clients. But tell me a little bit more about getting a high profile client like a Blake Snell. You said you kind of learned a little bit about him. He liked fishing, video
Hmm.
games, things like that. How did that conversation start? Did you call him? Did you meet him somewhere? Like, what was
Yeah.
the anxiety with that? Was there any anxiety considering as a star, or you already had a bunch of experience?
I had worked with a couple. I worked with a Bucks player previously, and I've worked with a couple high profile musicians. So
Hmm.
I think I've been around that world enough to not like fangirl.
Yeah.
And I think my former client Ryan, the manager of the Rays, knew that. And I think some of these high profile guys get taken advantage of by people
Hmm.
that see that they have these multi-million-dollar contracts, so they want to put them with somebody they trust and let them know that they can trust them. So I think that was important, and I just tried to show my value to Blake, to show him the neighborhood. He had already picked out a couple houses he wanted to see, and the first one he didn't like at all. Second one he was like, eh. And I said, there's this one I want to take you to. The pictures don't look great online, but I have a feeling it's going to be a good one. Like, can we go see it? It's 2 minutes from the other one that we were seeing. And he was like,
Mm.
yeah, okay. And when we walked in and it looked straight out to the water, he was sold. And I think there was a little bit of more trust there at that point, that he knew I knew what I was talking about.
How long did it take until you guys found that specific property? Was it like a
It didn't
large
take
timeline
long.
or?
No,
Okay.
I think he was in a bit of a hurry to find something, and his lease was ending. So it might have been the first or second day that we were
Okay.
out. So it was pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you made him some money then when he sold it.
Yeah, he did well when he sold it. He put a lot of money into it. He probably put 200,000 into the backyard.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Um, and I'll give you some photos that you can use, but he his whole video game thing, his persona is Snell Zilla, and he
Oh,
emblazoned Zilla in mosaic tiles in the pool. So,
no way.
so that was like an interesting selling thing when we had to sell it. I was thinking, well, is somebody going to want to keep this, or are they going to want to have the whole pool like retiled because it
Right.
says Zilla in it, and the people that ended up buying it kept it. They thought it was pretty
They
cool.
did keep it.
Yeah.
Okay. That is cool. So were you able to tell like people that when you listed it as a listing agent, you're there to promote it and get the highest
Mhm.
price? Were you able to tell people that he owned it, or how did that go about?
Yeah, I talked to him about that. Obviously, when he bought it, I couldn't tell anybody that I represented him because you don't
Hmm.
want fans showing up at his doorstep and things like that. So we kept it completely anonymous at that point. But when he sold, he was packed and gone pretty quickly. And I said, "Do you want me to use your name in association with this? Because it
Yeah.
might get you more money, but it's totally up to you." And he was like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to be gone. Go for it." And I mean, it's hard not to when you have Zilla emblazoned in the pool,
Yeah.
right? So,
Right. Right. That's
um,
so funny.
so yeah, we did use his name in association with marketing that, and I think that helped.
Good. Do you think you got maybe what, like a percentage higher than what it would have if you didn't utilize the name, like maybe 5% more,
Perhaps,
10%?
or maybe it just got more eyes on it. I
Hmm.
did a big press release when I did it, when we had the photos and the video done. So I think it just got a lot more exposure because people are clicking on it to see
Right.
Snell's house.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool. Now, what'd you do in terms of like getting him a gift? Because sometimes like when we have clients, I have a hard time choosing a particular gift, like a closing gift.
Yeah.
What do you get someone that's a star like that has, the money to buy pretty much whatever they want? Like, how does that work?
I struggled with that because I think at the time he had a 50-something million contract. And of course he's doing a lot more than that now. And I thought, what do you get this guy? The only things I knew he was into was video games, which I'm sure he had every single one that he could want. Right. He had a giant shoe closet. He had a big shoe fetish. And again, I'm like, I don't know what shoes he has. And fishing. So I went to our local fishing outfit and I said, I need the biggest, fanciest fishing pole you guys have, because he's a big dude. And they helped me out and got him something nice. So he seemed to like it. I mean, but that's the hard thing. You have to try to get to know these guys and figure out something that they would like.
Right. But at the same time, you also don't want to pry too much into their life either, I imagine. Yeah, there's that balance that you got to wiggle.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool. Any other cool stories you have with other professional athletes that you've encountered and taken care of for real estate?
Yeah, I was earlier in my career, I had done mostly mid-range homes. I hadn't really stepped into the luxury market yet. Mm-hmm. And I managed to get a Bucks player. And the way that happened, I think kind of how you're doing podcasting now, and there's videos huge now. Back in the day, blogging was huge. So I ranked really well in the search engines for my blogs. And this guy found me, and he had built a custom property in an area we have here called Fishhawk Ranch. That's like a big master plan community. But it was a good 40 minutes from the stadium. And he brought me out there. He said, I think I want you to sell this, before it was even completed. And I went and looked at it, and I said, what kind of deposit do you have on this that's hard? And he said, I think it was like $50,000 at the time. Mm-hmm. And the builder was still building, and it was so custom at the time. I said, honestly, I think you're better walking away from the deposit, because you're going to pay me more in commissions than than what I can get you back for this. And I think he really appreciated my honesty, and that I kind of stepped away from that commission to do the right thing for him. So then we went on, and he said, I just don't want to be that far from the stadium. He said, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking plays in my head, and I got to go to the stadium and write it down and work on stuff and look at tape or whatever. So we started looking for properties for him in South Tampa, and trying to look the part. I had bought a used pair of Gucci kitten heels, which men don't know what these are. They're slick shoes and with no traction on the bottom. And I'm coming down the steps in this one, multi-million-dollar property, and I just ate it, just right down the steps. And he's laughing and just scoops me up, and just thankfully I didn't break anything. Yeah. But very embarrassing, as one of the first times you're looking at luxury property and trying to impress this client. And we ended up becoming pretty good friends, and good guy.
Yeah, that's great. That's really scary, though, that you did, or embarrassing, I would say, unfortunately. But the fact that you already had that rapport, you were able to not really feel too bad, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was, I like the fact that this was after the fact you were being completely honest with him and kind of stepped away from that sale, because a lot of realtors, I wouldn't say all of them, but I feel like majority would have taken that sale, the first one you were talking about, new construction, rather than telling them the honest thing and stepping away, not knowing if they're actually going to use you as a realtor later. Right. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't sleep at night if I didn't tell them the truth. And honestly, you run them a net sheet, they're going to see what they pay you in commissions. And I don't know if it's the same where you are, but here, if a builder is still building new construction, a lot of times they're offering closing cost incentives. So it's hard for a resale to compete when the builder is still building. So I just felt like that was the right thing to do.
No, that's great. That's great. So are you going to be wearing those Gucci shoes moving forward? Or
No, I got rid of those.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, this is great. I want to go into a little bit more about your experience. You own your brokerage, which is really cool. And you lead a team, I imagine, being the manager too. What can you say is required of someone at your capacity to do what you do in terms of leadership? What kind of advice can you give listeners and people watching that are in the real estate industry?
Oh gosh. You have to have thick skin.
Okay. Is that one?
Yeah, that's one of them. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. My partner and I had an independent called Dwell Real Estate, and then we became a Corcoran franchisee. So like you with Coldwell Banker, we're under the same umbrella with Realogy Anywhere. So we did that because we felt like it would get us more exposure and working with a bigger company, and I think it has. But as far as leading the team, yeah, I have about 25 agents under me. I'm the broker. I do sell a little bit myself. And, sometimes that's interesting because people say, oh, you're a competing broker, which I hate that term because I don't compete with my agents. If I was ever up for something that one of my agents was up for, I would completely defer to them. But I do think that it keeps you fresh on the market. If agents come to me, especially if they're new to the area and they're like, I have this client, this is what they're looking for. They want, one of the condo buildings downtown that has the best amenities. I can rattle off which ones those are. Whereas somebody who isn't selling in the market, can't do that, can't give that sort of guidance. So I think that's, been helpful.
No, that's great. The thick skin is everything. And I like the fact that you mentioned that about, you don't want to compete within your team essentially.
Right.
Do you find it more fun doing that though, or selling real estate? Or do you feel like you have to take a leadership role in order to continue your career?
Yeah, I really enjoy both. I enjoy kind of the mentorship of helping my agents take their businesses to the next level. And a lot of them really have leveled up being here. And kind of learning the discipline that it takes to run a real estate business successfully. I do still enjoy selling. I mostly sell just to friends and family, or direct referrals like Blake ended up being. I don't really go out and market a ton for business, but or a lot of it that I do get, if I get business through the internet, buyers and things like that, we give those to our agents. So it works out well.
How do you process that when you get like a lead from the internet or whatever it may be? How do you know who to give it to? Because me being an agent myself, I'm not a broker or anything necessarily yet, but I want to know like what you have to do to get into the ability to get a lead from a manager, because there's so many of us that how do you compartmentalize who gets it?
We're a little bit of a smaller brokerage, or not brokerage, but office, because we're 25 agents. So I know everybody pretty well. I know who works what neighborhoods and things like that. So that kind of can play into it too. Like we have a couple agents that are specific to Tampa. So, the Tampa leads generally go there, and I try to be fair and round robin those to those agents. Right. But then, obviously if you have an agent that like dominates a certain neighborhood and somebody wants that neighborhood, then that's who you're going to try to connect them with.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah. That's really cool about the whole fact that you still work within your sphere of referrals, clients. Do you have more clientele that lined up for the Rays, Tampa Bay Rays?
Not right now. There was one gentleman, gosh, I'm blanking on his name. There was one gentleman that was referred from Blake to me that was coming down for spring training. And I ended up having him work with one of my agents because the part of town he was looking in was not like my specialty. So connected him with him, but that was very nice of him to pass him my name.
That is very cool. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he passed your name is a big deal because they don't pass, but you did a great job. So for him, thanks. What do you think about the whole Tropicana Stadium? Unfortunately, I think it was Hurricane Milton that destroyed the roof.
It's so sad. I mean, still some of the signs down there are still knocked over and stuff. I can't say I'm an expert on all the politics going on with the city and the Rays with that right now. I think there's supposed to be a vote in the next couple of days as to what is going to happen with that, because I know there's insurance involvement there and things like that. And they were talking about tearing down the stadium anyway and having them play elsewhere while they rebuild. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously we hope they stay. I think it's good for the city. There were plans to redevelop that. It's called the gas plant district. And that's all centers around the Rays. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I saw that in 2026, they plan to reopen it, whether it be a new construction or they fix the roof. But I was also seeing on the news that a lot of fans are wanting their teammates, or not teammates, want the stadium to be in the current location where it's going to be this year, which is the Steinbrenner Field, which is across the bridge. And a lot of people want to do that because they say that's Tampa. That's the actual Tampa, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, and more people can actually attend the games rather than going through the bridge and have to go fight all the traffic. What do you think about that?
That's the debate. Where that location is right across the street from the Bucs Stadium. And it's a very busy road through there. And I can tell you from going to Bucs games, it's not fun getting down there to park and get in and out. So I could just imagine baseball season and football season overlapping.
That'd be pretty bad.
That's going to be like. So for traffic wise, that's crazy to me. But if that's what people want, obviously I'm a little biased being in St. Petersburg. We don't want them to leave, but I get the other side too.
Right. No, that makes sense. What do you think about the whole real estate market right now? Has it improved since the hurricanes took place? Like, what's going on right now? Pricing?
Well, real estate's always super local, right? So you never believe national numbers, but here, we took a pretty good hit from back-to-back hurricanes, Hurricane Helene and then Hurricane Milton. My house flooded 3 feet. Blake Snell's old house flooded 3 feet.
Shoot.
So it's definitely taken a hit. There's a lot of people that are selling for land value. And then there's some people that are going to either knock down or they can physically lift their house. There's a process by which they can come in and do that. So it's going to be interesting for a couple of years. Yeah.
You did say 3 feet. What exactly does that mean? If it's 2 feet, 1 feet, is there a way to salvage it or no?
Well, so, I'm where my neighborhood is, it's waterfront. You're in a flood zone. Obviously that's the risk you take. I flooded previously with Hurricane Idalia, before that. So we've really had 4 storms over like 2 years back to back. I flooded 1 inch through that and it still caused $100,000 worth of damage in my home, which was only 1,600 square feet. It's not massive. But when it's an inch, you don't have to redo electrical. You don't have to do those kinds of things. You really just have to rip out drywall and, maybe some kitchen cabinets and things like that. When you hit 3 feet or 4 feet, it's over your electrical outlets. So now, you're ripping out a lot more. It's a lot more damage. And there's something called the FEMA 50% rule, which I won't say I'm an expert in, but I think the basics is if your home is deemed substantially damaged and it's more than 50% of what FEMA says your home's value is, you have to knock it down or lift it and rebuild. So that's what a lot of people are facing right now.
And if you have to knock it down, do you get help from the federal government with money, or is it all on you? Insurance? What's up with that?
You're supposed to, but in reality, it's FEMA's a nightmare to deal with. I mean, I've been dealing with it myself. I was laughing when it hit North Carolina and they're telling people to go online and file for this. I'm like, they don't have online. They don't even have power. Like, how are they supposed to do this? So there's supposed to be assistance, but in reality, it's extremely difficult to get it. I found I had to go down to the FEMA center in person and talk to somebody to get things rolling, but it's not easy. And the problem is with 2 storms back to back, there's so many people trying to file for permits and things like that at once that it's going to be a slow process.
Right. Dang, that's terrible. I think that's why so many people are upset too, because they see, on the news that the government's sending money to other places, part of the world, and the people here at home are having to suffer, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, between hurricanes and we've got fires out where you are and things like that. I mean, that's very disheartening.
Yeah, for sure. And you said land value is kind of where it's at now in terms of the ones that were flooded. In terms of land, like let's say it's $1 million home, is land value maybe 30% of the price itself, maybe 50%?
It's hard to put a number on it. It's just like real estate, right? You got to look at the comps to see what things have sold for, but we don't have a lot of vacant land here. So tear downs are where it's always been at if you're going to build new construction. So you have to kind of go back and look at those. And for the waterfront, a lot of it depends if you were like open water, like Blake Snell's house was, versus mine is on a canal with a bridge to get through. You can only have a certain size boat. So there's a big difference there in terms of what it's worth. But I think it's a big opportunity right now too for builders and investors to come in and scoop some of these things up at good values. Right. Because, like I said, the neighborhood that Blake and I were both in, great neighborhood. It's 10 minutes from our downtown area. It's an A-rated school district, but there's some hesitation in the market because 4 storms in 2 years. They're like, whoa,
Yeah.
we hope that cycle is over.
Right. I can only imagine. So do you think like someone that buys or a property, tears it down, builds something else, do they need to build at a higher elevation now in order to, okay. Do you know about how much?
I think it's like 6 to 10 feet up. I'm not sure what the exact code on that is, but I mean, it's just a smart thing to do. Most people are doing where you put the garage on the bottom with like breakthrough doors so that if, God forbid, it floods and water comes through, it just comes in one side and goes right out the other. And then you have your main living level on the second level.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's something to really think about with floods. That's I know out here in California, we deal, like you said, with fires. And then also if you live in the hills, besides it being a fire, the landslides, those are scary. So we have to use the retaining walls. Sometimes it costs not that much. Other times it can cost millions of dollars to prevent a landslide from happening and destroying your property or even unfortunately killing someone. So I think the insurance companies are just going to continue to probably make things more difficult, unfortunately, too.
Yeah, Citizens offered me a whopping $300 for Milton after my roof is leaking. I'm having all kinds of problems. $300. Right. So
that's laughable. What the heck? Really?
My advice there is, if you do face some kind of natural disaster, get either a public adjuster or an insurance attorney immediately, because I know for a lot of clients I'm representing that have flood houses, they're like, well, I'm going to wait and see what insurance offers me and then get somebody involved. And the problem is the damage is kind of done at that point because the adjuster's already been out. They've already submitted bids and reports and things like that. So that's hard to get people to understand because they don't want to hire somebody up front. They think they can do it, but those, the insurance people are smarter than us as far as the loopholes and things like that.
Right. And I think they have time on their side too.
Yeah. And it's just like, I hired a public adjuster because I thought it's like being a realtor having a realtor versus selling your house by owner. You don't know what you don't know. And that person does, that you're, working against. So, I think that's invaluable to have that professional on your side.
I totally agree because they spend all the time and effort to understand what's going on. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you seeing that the I saw there was a bunch of debris and trash once everything went through. I saw on your social media that it was there for quite some time. Is that all cleaned up now? Like, what's the status on that?
It's still happening. They have a goal of getting it done by January, which, it hit in September. So
yeah, it's a long time.
It's a long time. I would say most of the community is picked up. I feel like they did some of the touristy areas quicker, to be honest with you, like the beaches. But some of the neighborhoods still have debris. Yeah.
Did the governor, DeSantis, did he have a role in the cleanup? I didn't really follow what was going on with that.
Yeah, he did. And he came in and said, we're going to use the full FEMA funds and open up additional dump sites. I don't know what happened. There was a lot of like scuttlebutt going on about that because people who were hiring private haulers. I hired a private hauler to get my stuff out because I was like, I'm not going to let it sit here till January, and it stunk and it was moldy and we had rats and but the dumpers couldn't get into the dump sites. They were shutting them down. So there's definitely something political happening there. I'm not sure what it was, but I know that the governor was trying to get everything opened up.
I can imagine with all this difficulty, you guys were all able to come as a community a little bit closer, kind of like during the COVID times. Is that something you noticed?
Definitely. I mean, just speaking from my own personal experience, I flooded twice, the first time an inch, and I kind of handled everything myself. And then this time, I think I knew it was going to flood the day before. I was watching what the tides were and everything. And I was like, it's going to happen. And, normally I'm a person that's like, I got it. I can do everything myself. And reached out to my friends and I was like, I don't got it. I need all hands on deck. And friends brought friends and, people came out of the woodwork to help. So it was great.
In terms of like moving your things out or?
Yeah. As soon as we could get back in the neighborhood, because the water stayed pretty high for a day or two. As soon as you could actually get a car back in there.
That's scary.
Yeah, exactly. The water had drained out at that point, but everything was wet. And I had taken like 5-gallon buckets and put plywood on top of them and stacked my couches and tables and everything, thinking like, if I only flood 6 to 12 inches, my stuff will be fine. Well, it didn't. It still got wet. So everybody came in, and I assigned all my friends a room, and I said, if it's wet, throw it, at the curb. If it's dry, put it in a bin and throw it in the U-Haul. So
I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's damn hectic.
Yeah, not fun.
No, and I know life's all about risk too. But now that you have buyers that maybe they're not from that area in Tampa, if they're looking to buy in areas that have been flooded, maybe they didn't get flooded though, but they're in that flood zone. What do you recommend to them? Should they buy, or should they buy something at a higher elevation, or what do you think?
I definitely think if you're going to buy, either buy at a higher elevation or buy land and build it at a higher elevation. I have several realtor friends that live in that community that I live in, and I know one of them in particular is taking advantage of it. And there was a woman whose house didn't flood, but she had like 120 something feet of waterfront, and she just wanted to get out of the neighborhood. So he's scooping that up at a great deal. He's like, it needs cosmetic updates, but I'll rent it for a couple of years, and then when I'm ready, I'll tear it down and build something pretty big there. So there's definitely opportunities there.
Do you think those opportunities in terms of homes that were spared from floods and aren't going to be torn down, do you think they'll always be at a slight discount now because of this?
I think, it's when you have 4 storms in 2 years, there's a little bit of a reputation now for flooding. And that particular neighborhood has been having issues anyway, because it was built at a very low elevation. And there was issues with, when we had high tides, even on a sunny day, water coming up through the storm system into the street. Yeah. So the neighborhood actually threatened a class action against the city. And now the city is spending millions to replace these things. They're called backflow preventers, that when the tide comes up, they close and keep the water from coming into the street. So, hopefully that's going to improve that neighborhood.
So if you can back up a little bit, what do you mean by that? Like, are those backflows, are they already in place now, or they're going to be installing them?
They're in place now, but they're 30 years old. And when you have salt water, they get full of barnacles. So then they're not closing correctly. So that's why I think the last couple of years we've had a lot of flooding, worse than ever before. And then the storms on top of it is just,
So there's where that political aspect of complication comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if they can improve that, I feel like that would be really good for the whole neighborhood then, wherever that's in.
Yeah, they're definitely working on it. So I don't think that they want, a big lawsuit from this particular neighborhood is massive. So that would be bad for the city.
Right. I wanted to ask you, in terms of the area, what are like the 3 luxury neighborhoods that you can name off of? And if you happen to know like what the price range kind of varies in terms of single family. Like let's say you get a MLB player right now, a huge one. Where do you think they might purchase? And it'll probably be the same neighborhood as Blake Snell.
In St. Pete, I think they would probably buy in either Snell Isle or downtown. Snell Isle is the neighborhood right adjacent to where Blake was. They flooded a little bit during the hurricanes too, but it's become a very affluent neighborhood.
I thought they named it after him. That's funny.
Yeah, I know that initially he wanted to buy in Snell Isle, but it didn't work out that way. So, but there, I would say, depending if you're waterfront or non, it could be $2 million on up.
Okay.
Or downtown, there's a lot of, ball players that don't want any kind of house maintenance. So they want like a luxury condo downtown, and one with a water view, you're probably talking a decent water view, 2 million plus, 2 to 6, 8, depending if you're getting a penthouse or something like that. And then
HOAs though, what do you think the HOAs range like?
Oh,
at least 600 and up, or 800 and up?
Yeah, easily.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely just insurance and things like that.
Yeah.
And then in Tampa, I would say Davis Island or the general South Tampa area. South Tampa has a bunch of little sub communities within, but South Tampa in general is a very popular area.
South Tampa. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I've noticed that. I mean, a lot of what we hear about Florida, like the hot spots, is like Miami, Palm Beach,
Mhm.
Fort Lauderdale. But as of recent, I've really been hearing the last like 5 years that Tampa is another spot. A lot of like younger people are moving there too, to that
Yeah.
section.
Yeah. I grew up in Palm Beach County, actually. So
Oh, you
came over,
did?
and yeah, in 2004-ish.
Hmm.
So yeah, when I get people that are like, oh, we're not sure East Coast, West Coast, I'm like, well, talk to me about what you like, because I can tell you a lot
Yeah.
about both.
What would you say is the main difference? Because I spend a lot of time on that side. I don't really go to. I don't. I've only gone to Tampa maybe once. I think maybe
Okay.
twice. But what would you say is the
It's
biggest
just,
difference in terms of culture, maybe, or real estate? I don't know.
yeah, it's a totally different vibe. I mean, there's the old adage that everybody who came down I-95 from like New York, New Jersey ended up on the East Coast, and the Midwesterners ended up on the West
Mm.
Coast. And
Oh, I see.
it came down to I-75 versus I-95. And there's some truth in that. I would say that the West Coast is a little bit more laid back, less flashy. Like, we definitely have people with money here, but they're not so showy about it.
Right. They're more
Like,
polite, I imagine.
yeah, well, like I had a guy walk in one time when I was sitting in the office, and he kind of looked like a bum. He's just wearing like a Hawaiian shirt and shorts and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I own 15 car dealerships up north. So just,
Dang.
proof you
Yeah.
can't judge a book. But I found when I lived on the East Coast, it's a lot more about what you're driving, who, definitely has that kind of vibe.
Yeah, totally. I see that over here. I work in Los Angeles County and Orange County. So they're
Hmm.
different counties that are a bit different. Los Angeles, it's pretty much typical of what you kind of referenced in terms on the west side for like Miami and areas like that. And then Orange County, everyone's laid back. You don't really see realtors ever wear a suit. Um, you could see flip flops more so happening
Yeah.
than a suit with a tie. Like I don't even think anyone wears a tie anymore. Do you see that often?
Not too often. And like with my own agents, it's a mix. Some of them, dress up with their
Hmm.
clients, and some of them, they say they dress to their clients. So if their clients in
Oh, I
jeans,
see.
they're in jeans, So
Yeah.
I've always been the mentality, maybe I'm a little old school, but I've always been the mentality, you dress nice, whether your
Yeah.
client's dressed up or not, you're the professional. So,
I agree with that. I agree
mhm.
with that. I will say I don't really know too much about wardrobes and all that. But what I can say, it's easier to dress in a suit because you just wear whatever color it is, a white shirt, and you're done.
Yeah.
If you want to be kind of cool and trendy, casual but formal, it's very difficult, I think. It can be at least because yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that. So sometimes I just like to put on a blazer and call it a day with
It's
some
easier
jeans.
for men, I think. But yeah, I've always been taught like dress for the client you want.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, if you catch me out showing in jeans, I'm in a blazer as well and heels. Not
There you go. Just not the Gucci ones you said, right?
the Gucci ones anymore,
That's
unless they're
funny.
brand new with good treads.
Yeah. Well, Leanne, I really appreciate your time. This was
Yeah,
really
thank
fun.
you.
Yeah, we got to learn a lot about you and catering to these high profile clients, but also it's good to hear that things are looking a little bit better with the whole after situation with the hurricane. So that's good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, where can some people find you? Instagram, socials, if you want to go ahead and mention it, and we'll also put it in
Yeah,
here.
I was gonna say I have funny spelling on my first and last name, so you'll have to put it in there. But
Okay.
Instagram is Liane M Jamason, LianeMJamason.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Cool. And do you do a lot of videos? Like do you talk on camera and give
I
advice or
do. I
okay.
do. I've embraced that. We've gone away from blogs and into videos. So
Yeah,
broke down and hired a social media girl to help me out a little bit. And
good.
yeah, I'm sure it's hard to get on camera at first because you're like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
like the way I look, or what am I going to say? But it gets
Mhm.
easier the more you do it.
Right. Now, are you requiring your agents to do it then or
We
not
don't
really?
require it, but I highly encourage it.
Right. Well, thank you, Leanne. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.